Welcome to this episode of Be the Wolf. Today, we are going to talk about whether adaptability is a strength or weakness. Now, why do you want to know this? I'm going to tell you, if you are a person that's dedicated to being the wolf, being who you are born to be, then understanding whether certain things are strengths or weaknesses is very important to your self-esteem, especially when it's something like adaptability. Because is it a strength or a weakness? Well, the true answer is that it is neither, and it is both. It's very situationally dependent, situationally dependent. So we're going to dig in a little bit to really get to the crux of whether you're being flexible or you're being adaptable is diminishing your self-worth, is creating problems in your life that you don't want, or if it's actually expanding your self-worth, your self-esteem, and opening up possibilities. Because ultimately, when you are dedicated to being who you are born to be, you want to really step into the things that expand who you are and allow you to create your visions, your dreams, the things that you were born to create in this world. Okay, so we want to think about adaptability. I think everybody has been faced with this during the last few years with this pandemic thing. And it doesn't matter what you think or how you feel about it. It's this thing that came in from the outside somehow, and it affected your life. And were you able to adapt quickly, or did it send you into panic? Now, businesses that were able to adapt quickly, a lot of them thrived, and a lot of businesses just held on. They waited and waited and waited. And then when things got really bad, when they started running out of money, they started scrambling to do whatever they could to bring in the money. And that's when they became adaptable. And if you want to just really think about that, they waited till the pain was so great that they had to do something to change. And that's when they became flexible, became adaptable. The people that adapted, the businesses that adapted right off the bat, like they saw this thing happening. They're like, oh, well, how can I make more possibility? What can I do to open up greater possibility, greater flow, greater revenues of resources? And the basis here is they were thinking long term, right? They saw this thing happening and they acted immediately before the pain was too great to actually make a difference. So they assessed the situation. They saw that something's coming down the line, and they made pivots and shifts accordingly. Now, this is one way that your businesses have adapted, and sometimes it was a positive thing that they created, and other times if they waited too long, they waited till the pain was bad, that it created not such a great thing, right? They were scrambling to try to get stuff done and couldn't even make things work. Whereas the businesses that started right off the bat, they had 6 months ahead of the other businesses to really get into the flow of the adaptability. And that's great for the businesses. But what about you? Right? We're talking about you. We always want to know about ourselves. That's fine. That's a great example. Sure. But what about me? So think about yourself and your life. Now, are you bending over backwards to accommodate other people, right? They ask you to do something and you say, Oh, it's no problem. It's no problem. I'll do that. So you adjust your schedule. You adapt what you were doing to accommodate what they want you to do. And that's fine. But over time, over and over and over, you keep adapting and bending what might be best for you to accommodate somebody else. Now you're starting to diminish your self-esteem because you're putting somebody else's worth ahead of yours. And if you want somebody to value you, you've got to value you first. You show people how you want to be treated. So if you let somebody walk all over you, if you bend and contort to accommodate them, if you become adaptable to every single situation and never draw a line, you are diminishing your self-worth and your self-esteem, because what you are doing is you are telling yourself that they are more important than you. Now, how you want to shift your thinking about this is start to look at, does this situation, does this potential for me adapting or being flexible in a situation, does it feel good and create more possibility in my life? Or does it feel contracting and like it's limiting me? And this will take some time and some consciousness and some awareness to really start to focus in on what is happening for you specifically in these situations. Now, for instance, if there's an opportunity at work and you see something you really want to be doing, and you overheard your bosses talking about how they want to find somebody to work on, I don't know, social media. And it's something you really like to do. You've poured hours into figuring out the dynamics of how it all works, and you'd really love the opportunity to work on that. In fact, it would fill you up with joy. And so you might step in and say, hey, I'm pretty good at this. I would really like to work on this project. And you know that it means more hours. You know that it means the same amount of pay. But what you also know is that working on this will energize you and fuel you and motivate you. Now, this is a situation where your flexibility in taking on something else new is going to create an expansive feeling in your body. It's going to energize you. Now, if your boss comes in and you're already overwhelmed with work and he asks you, hey, there's this new project coming up. I was wondering if you really wanted to be a part of it. And if you just sit there in fear thinking, oh, I have to say yes, or else I will get fired, this feels contracting, because you know that taking on that added responsibility is going to diminish your energy, is going to take away from you. And if you are taking away from you, this is damaging your self-esteem. And what you can do instead in a situation like that, when you know it's going to be contracting and taking away from you, you can say, I would really love to work on this project. I'm overwhelmed with what's going on now. Can I move one of these projects to somebody else so I can take that on? And there you've created that space, and you're still being flexible and adaptable, but you're drawing a boundary, right? Here's the thing, drawing a boundary to hold you in this space of having it feel expansive and having it feel good to you, as opposed to just bending and limiting you. It's like the more you bend and contort, the smaller your box will become. Imagine yourself trying to fit into the box of, let's see, one of those dressers that come from IKEA or something that's, it's a big box, but it's definitely not designed for a human to fit comfortably in it. Imagine crawling into one of those boxes, and now that's the space that you have to move from. And when you become too adaptable, too flexible, this is what begins to happen, because you're adapting out of fear. You're adapting because you're afraid of getting fired. You're afraid that somebody won't like you. Oh, I can't say no to going to that party because then they won't invite me again. You see, there's the motivation behind it that really gives you clues. Is your motivation because you're doing the thing because you want to prevent something negative from happening? Or are you doing the thing because you want to create something positive to happen, right? Prevent and avoid versus create and expand. So really looking at your motivation behind why you're adapting is going to give you big, big clues, because adapting and being flexible is important. And drawing boundaries to protect your space, your energy, your health is also important. I remember when I first started going to yoga, I was pretty flexible. And I was also not very stable. The mind and the body they're very reflective. At that time in my life, I never drew boundaries. I did almost everything out of fear, a fear of not being liked, a fear that maybe I wouldn't be good enough, a fear of that I could get fired. I went above and beyond always to make sure that people liked me, that my job was stable, my everything was secure. For me, it was about security, but the security, right? Security sounds great. Like, oh, security is stable. But we all know, especially these last couple of years, that nothing is 100% secure. If you have the flexibility to move, but can also draw your structure and stability, that is where your ultimate strength comes from. When I did yoga and my body was very flexible, I also had terrible balance because I was not grounded in my body. I was not stable in my body. So there's that strength that comes from the stability and the flexibility. I'm at like a tree. They have the strong roots. They can hold to what is important to them, but they might be able to bend and move in the breeze. And that's how you want to be adaptable and flexible, being able to make sure that you can do what is right for you, keep those roots strong so that your base and your foundation are solid, and be able to be flexible so that you can create more freedom in your life. Does that make sense? I want to hear your questions. You guys can reach out to me on social media. You can reach out to me via my website. I would love to hear your questions and your thoughts about adaptability being a strength or a weakness, and sharing your stories. I would also love to hear your stories about where it might have been a strength for you and where it might have been a weakness. So going into really learning how to do what's best for you so that you have the room and the space to live your purpose, to live your dreams, to create the life you were born to create, live the life that you were born to live. You think about, you can use this as a gauge. Does it feel expansive in my body, or does it feel contractive? Does it limit my possibilities or expand them? So bringing that consciousness to your motivation about why you are being adaptable and flexible is important. This will give you clues. Are you creating or preventing? Sometimes you might be making a compromise for the bigger picture, right? And this can be great, but it also can be very slippery, because if you start to go against your values and your integrity, you begin to damage your self-esteem. When your self-esteem gets damaged and your self-esteem is low, your ability to be effective diminishes, because you're not living by the structure, by the roots of the tree. So compromise is okay if it's creating something bigger and more possibility. Where it becomes a negative thing for you, you've got to determine this for yourself. I'm not inside your head, inside your body, inside your mind. So only you can be the gauge of this. Is if you're going against what you feel deep down is right and true. I suspect a lot of politicians they all get into it, I think. And maybe this is optimistic thinking, but I think they all get into it because they want to make positive change, and because they want to be the wolf and do what they were born to do. And along the way, they make little compromises. And these little compromises sometimes will go against values and integrity. And you probably have done the same thing. I know I did it so many times in my life. And I have, thankfully, the thing is you can recover from this. You can rebuild your self-esteem and bring all that stuff back into balance. So I think that the more you stick to your values, the more you stick to your integrity, you will know if a compromise is a good thing. Maybe there's a little bit of contraction to making the compromise, but on the other side, it allows you to create so much. Maybe you want to be the sole owner of your business, but if you allow somebody to come in and have 5% of your business and bring a massive cash infusion, and that allows you to actually grow and expand your business way beyond what you ever would have been able to do beyond you by yourself, that is it. As long as your partner is in alignment with your company values, is in alignment with your values, if it is an aligned partnership, it creates a lot of possibility. And that's how you can see an example of something that you make a little compromise to create some more expansion. You adapt to bring in a cash infusion, to create more, to create bigger possibility. But again, coming back to that moral line of what is important to you, your values, your integrity. And so this week, as you move into your regular day-to-day things, I challenge you to start to notice where in your life you are adapting. And notice if this is taking away from who you were born to be. Notice what your motivation is behind it. Is this keeping you from being the wolf, being all that you were born to be? Because I can't tell you this. Every situation is going to be a little bit different. Only you will know, because it's you who gauges what's right for you inside of you. I am not in your head. I cannot feel whether your motivation is moving towards something you want to create and something bigger, or if you're trying to avoid something. So you get to look at how you move in your adaptability and your flexibility, and notice how it feels in your body. Okay, thank you guys for listening, and gals and everybody in between. Thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Be the Wolf. And I look forward to hearing your stories about adaptability, flexibility, and maybe what you learned. So reach out to me. You can reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, even, or you can just send me a message through my website at geneabarnes.com, GeneaBarnes.com. And I look forward to hearing from y'all. Bye. Have